First, I would like to apologize for my poor English. I will try to speak slowly and to be understandable. If you have some problems, don't hesitate to say to me, speak more slowly or more clearly on the text chat. And so I will try now to see the thing from another angle. I would like to speculate about the way future religions will look like. So I will not speak about transhumanist religion, or even I will not even speak about the relationship between religion and transhumanism. I would like to see if we can make religion a transhuman tool. In other words, I would like to know if we can use religious ideas and behavior and mythology, of course, to use it as a intelligence enhancer, as a brain enhancer. You have Ritalin, you have modafinil. Tomorrow, perhaps, you will have religion. So my first question is, can religious experience and mythology become an engine of creation? That's a reference to Eric Drexler. It seems that creativity is constantly related to religion. And the goal that I want to speak about is about becoming enthusiastic. Enthusiast, the word enthusiasm, means in Greek being possessed by a god. So you see that at the beginning of the idea of enthusiasm, there is the religious idea of religious possession. So that's the way I see religion as a brain enhancer. It will not give you more memory, it will not give you more concentration, but it may give you more enthusiasm. And that's perhaps the most important mental enhancement we can have. I think that's a writer, Colin Wilson, who said that the main curse of humanity was boredom. And if we can escape to boredom, if we can be always enthusiastic about what we want to do, it would be a great advance in science, in art, in our own life. So, but the problem is that religion has a lot of characteristics we don't want anymore, especially belief and belief in weird things. So, the first question that I would like to know is, how can we get rid of the old way to do religion? So, I skip this one for instance. Here you have the various byproducts existing today of religion. Music is coming from religion. Art, of course. Philosophy, theater, which was created in Greece as the Epidaurus theater. And even science, the first creator of the scientific method, Kepler, Newton, Giordano Bruno, of course, were in fact religious thinkers. That was because they believed in one form of religion, which was a kind of Neo-Pythagoreanism, that they created the scientific methods. But there is belief in religion. And this is a problem, because we don't want to believe in weird things. So, the first thing I would like to say is that religion is not something monolithical with one definition. It is something which evolves and which is very hard to define, in fact. So, I put this one on the slideshow because if I am not understandable, you will see the idea. Religion evolves not only in its contents, but also in its practice, its institutions, and even in its fundamental core. What do I mean by that? For instance, of course, religions evolve in its contents. We don't believe in the same gods than 2,000 years ago. It evolved in its practices. For instance, if you go even today in Africa or India, you will see cases of possessions. It's very rare in our country. We don't even understand how this can happen. If you go back to hunter and gatherer, you will see shamanism. Shamanism is also very rare in our country, there is neo-shamanism, but it's not the same thing as the old shamanism. And what is interesting is that you discover, for instance, that shamanism is universal among hunter-gatherers. Possession is almost universal in agricultural societies and almost inexisting in our industrial societies. So if religions evolve, there is no reason to think that we will not evolve even further. And some categories that we think as universal, such as belief, God, the creator of God, or the importance of afterlife, will remain central. Example, afterlife. We always think that religion is about afterlife. But when you go back in the old religions, you discover that in fact there is an afterlife, but it's not very important, not very interesting, and it's certainly not the central part of the religion. If you look, for instance, at Greek religion, and if you read Homer, you discover that the dead persons are becoming shadows, and it's not really interesting to become a shadow. And if you are a hero, you can go to the Elysian fields where you are happy, but you forget everything, and it's not a very happy life, in fact, either. And if you think about God as a creator, go back again to the Greeks, there are almost no myths in Greek mythology about the creation of man. I see that audio is down for somebody. It is down for everybody? Yes, no? Okay, well, I continue. So we see that everything we think about religion is not universal, is not eternal. There are some things which seem to be always there. For instance, there is always some supernatural agent in religion. You will tell me, oh no, that's not true. In Buddhism, there is no supernatural agent. But if you look at the inside of a Buddhist religion, I don't know if James will agree with me, you will see that indeed there is a lot of supernatural aspects in the life of the Buddha. And if you go even to countries like Thailand, which are the most orthodox Buddhist countries, they are the older vehicles, they are Hinayana, you will see that there are temples, rituals, prayers to the Buddha. So, my question will be, can we make religion evolve so that we can keep the enthusiastic aspect and get rid of the old aspect? Can we go, for instance, beyond belief? Can we imagine religion without belief? So, there are in fact some religious currents already existing who are more or less skeptical about belief. For instance, in Tantric Buddhism, in Tibet, in India, or in Mongolia, you worship some deities, but these deities are just metaphors of states of subconsciousness, and you get rid of them once you have attained these states of consciousness. There are an always current called Purva Mimamsa in India. That's an ideology which says that, in fact, the Buddha, not the Buddha, the Indian gods may not exist, and what is important is to do the ritual. The ritual is creating the gods. That's the only important thing. It's doing correctly the ritual. The gods are less important than the ritual. In Hermeticism, you have some idea that the gods and goddesses of Egypt were created by their devotees, by the priests. They put energy from the cosmos, and they create the gods by putting the energies in statues. That's the first idea of an artificial intelligence and of a superior artificial intelligence. And it's that back from the beginning of Christianity. Today, there are other currents, other ideologies that say that we can use belief and not be the slave of it. For instance, you have John Lilly theory of belief. I will quote this famous sentence by John Lilly: "In the province of the mind, what is believed to be true is true or becomes true within certain limits to be found experientially and experimentally. These limits are further believed to be transcended. In the province of the mind, there are no limits." If you know John Lilly, it's a very weird person. He was inventor of the isolation tank, and he put himself in isolation tank, took some LSD or ketamine, and created his own belief. For instance, he imagined that he was a time traveler or a space traveler, and he created a reality in his isolation tank by simply programming his belief. There is another current which is quite weird in occultism and counterculture today, called chaos magic. The basic idea of chaos magic is this. So the founder is Peter Carroll, and he says, if you want a one-line definition which most Chaosists would probably not disagree, then I offer the following. Chaosists usually accept the meta-belief that belief is a tool for achieving effect. It's not an end in itself. And so chaos magicians believe anyway in weird things. They believe in paranormal phenomena and supernatural things. I don't, of course. But they play very interesting game. For instance, at the beginning of the day, they can throw a dice. If they have a 1, they will be Christian. If they have a 2, they will be Hinduist. A 3, they will be atheist, and so on. And they create their own belief for the day. So you see, when you see people like John Lilly or Chaos Magic, we are not far from gaming. These people are playing as if they play with religion. I come back to the page. They play with religion and they use it for extending their vision of reality. So there are a lot of pop religions. For instance, there is Discordianism, which was very appreciated by the writer Robert Anton Wilson, which is the cult of the Eris goddess, the goddess of chaos. There are some Lovecraft cults, people who are worshipping Cthulhu or Yog-Sothoth, and they know that, of course, they are fictional deities. There is another interesting current in counterculture today, is the culture of other kings and vampires, people who say that they are, in their own identity, vampires or werewolf or elf or extraterrestrial. That's always, again, this is a kind of game. So we see that, in fact, we can use religion as a game. So, can we compare something serious as religion and something like gaming? The first thing I would say is that, in fact, gaming is the most serious thing of the world. When you see a child playing, it's very serious. Gaming is much more serious than working, for instance. People who are really gamers know that game is really an important activity. And if you look at history, you will notice that indeed all the big games of history are linked to religious or to divination or to magic. The game of chess and Go, for instance, were at first divinatory systems. Cards, of course, are divinatory systems too. If you look at the roots of sports, Olympic Games were games, in fact, that were rituals for the gods, for the Greek gods. Martial arts is another way to see a relationship with a sport and a religious system. Of course, at first, martial arts were mainly for war, but with time, it became a philosophy and almost a ritual and religious philosophy and a sport. You have also ritual elements in children play, for instance, nursery rhymes. And of course, you have, I put it in French, but in English, I think it's carnival. You have carnival, which is the most important ritual of Saturnalia in Roma, and which is now, of course, the archetype of play and games. So we have games and religion have something in common. When you play or when you pray, you are in a state of flow. You are in another state of consciousness. That does not mean that you are like in LSD or like a shaman or a possessed person. You are normal, but you are in another slightly better state of consciousness that some psychologists name the flow. So when you look at the current games existing, you will see a lot of relationship with religion and belief. For instance, you have alternate reality games. In alternate reality games, people are investigating, mostly through the web, but also through other media, that's transmedia, as we say, another reality, and psychologists who worked about people involved in IRG notice that they seem to believe in this alternate reality. And Jen McGonigal, who is one of the best specialists of games today, says that gamers maximize their play experience by performing belief rather than actually believing in the permeability of the game reality boundary. Reality is broken, that's right. So that's really interesting because you see that it's very close to what I say about chaos magic. People are performing belief. And I will give you an example, which is interesting because it's a double example. An example from a chaos magician and an example from Jen McGonigal. There is on the net various chaos magic ritual, and one is about invoking Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So the ritual is a way to pray Buffy and becoming one with her, like in the pujas, the Indian pujas, you identify with the god. And that's interesting that Jen McGonigal, who, as far as I know, is not a chaos magician, had at some time a concussion on her head, and to cure herself, she imagined that she was Buffy, and that her pains were the vampires. So that's interesting to see that from two different circles, people are using the same way to play, to become a character of pop culture in order to have a better way to access to their consciousness and their environments. There is another kind of alternate reality games. It's the first of the alternate reality games, probably which exist, which was named the Incunabula Papers. It was like an hoax. It was a strange papers on the web, and before the web on the various BBS, about an alternate reality. And this alternate reality was, in fact, a kind of presentation of the whole counterculture ideas about freedom and liberty of consciousness and so on. And an analyst of the Incunabula paper says that the way the paper worked was very reminiscent of cult-like initiation, but very different in the sense that they are looking for a very unique personality type. A person who is hedonistic, open-minded, but skeptical, spiritual, scientifically minded, creative, free-spirited, educated, critical, not the typical initiate of your standard cult. That's interesting because you see that through the alternate reality games and perhaps other kind of video games, perhaps, you can have some kind of initiation. You can select some qualities. So now we'll try to speculate a little for the last part of this lecture, and we try to imagine what we can do to make games more religious or religions more gameful. First, I will not try, I have used, of course, the word religion. I should not have, because I don't want to define religion. You know that according to some anthropologists, there is not even a right definition of religion. It's perhaps just a category which is Western and which may have no sense for the other civilization. But I will not try to define religion, but I try to isolate some features of common religions and see how we can use them in order to create new kind of games we make us more enthusiastic. So there are super imaginary beings. I use the word counterintuitive agents. That's a common expression in cognitive science of religion, but it means simply superhuman imaginary beings with a lot of power, gods in other words. There is another world, a world of fantasy and imagination, where those beings inhabit, and I think that's the very important thing. Everything is connected and meaningful. When you enter in a religious world, there is no place for randomness or for absence of intelligence. Everything is conscious, everything is intelligent, everything has a purpose. That's why you are so good in it, because it's a place for human. It's a fictional place when you are happy because everything is intelligent and conscious. There are, of course, some specific kind of stories which are myths. And there is, and that's also an important thing, I think, a bidirectional access between our world and this other world. This is something which is lacking in common games. In common games, you can isolate yourself from the world and play chess, for instance, but there is not the other direction. You cannot have the fantasy world becoming and invading the real world. So, we want to create and map another world. This may be a virtual world. We can create it on a computer. But I say it must be semantically complete. As I said, everything should be connected and meaningful. But you can combine the element of this fantasy world so you can express everything in the world. The examples, there are big pantheons in paganism. You have astrology. You can combine the planets endlessly in order to create so every emotion you can imagine. You have Kabbalah in Judaism. You have Yiking in China. And also games like chess, Tarot, and Go. People who play chess too much tend to see the world as a chessboard. For instance, it's spontaneous. To entering the other world, we have right now the ability to have unanswered trance technique and high levels of virtual immersion. You can use smart drugs, we can use very high level technology to enter in virtual worlds, and so on. Then we may create gods. So perhaps you can create gods from scratch. I can decide right now that I will create the god Kanona, the goddess Kanona, with the goddess of camcorder, for instance. I just created it. But it's quite difficult because if I create a god or a goddess myself, perhaps I cannot communicate everything meaningful to the other person. You can use popular culture. I spoke about Buffy a few minutes ago. There are some emergent gods who emerge in our contemporary culture and which may use by us to create some religious experience. I think, for instance, of UFOs and all the UFO culture. which is emerging with no leader, with anything, but we can use them to express our idea, our emotion. And you can have some practice. I say that that's the example of artificial puja. Puja is in India a ritual when you identify with a god by doing some ritual practice. And we can, by using quantified self-technology, learn to become a god. For instance, if I want to become, let's say, Aphrodite, I can say that I cannot never be hungry. I must always be loving. So I can imagine that I can monitor some of my physiological parameters, or simply when I am online, I can use some keywords showing that I am in fact a loving person. If I am Ares, the god of war, I will have to be hungry 3 times a day, for instance. That's the game. So I will have to have some physiological parameters in order to be hungry very frequently. And now the last thing, we can now with immersion quite easily create really compelling virtual worlds and imagine gods and communicate with them. But how can we go back to Earth and make a world, a place, a symbolic place where the gods are playing, making the world a place for religious thought? We can use for that augmented reality, for instance. So I will give you an example of an experiment I did with some of my friends, of a game without anything technological in order to incarnate some gods in reality. It was a card game, so you have a few cards, each with the name of a god, Ares, Aphrodite, Zeus, and so on, and a few keywords. For instance, for Aphrodite, it would be love, sex, the sea, because she's on sea. For Ares, it will be war, it will be weapons, it will be the color red, and so on. I put these keywords on cards, and I distribute the cards among the players. And the game begins, and the game can last a few days or a few weeks. And the goal of each player will be not to say the keywords, it will be too easy. It will be to push the other player to say his own keywords. So he will try to bend reality to his own identity. And if a player is saying one of these keywords, he has lost. He gives his card to the winner, and the winner of the whole game is the guy who has all the cards. So this is an example of a way to try to bend reality. Very easy with just cardboard to a fantasy reality. So I will stop there, and if you want to continue the discussion, there is a mailing list called Euro Hacking, which is quite sleepy right now, but where we can discuss and program and have fun if you are interested. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Remi. We should revitalize the mailing list, which has been kind of sleeping recently, and I look forward to continuing some good discussions. So Remi was the last speaker of the morning sessions. All the time we want for questions.